Hey guys, Savage Joy here with Real Progressives. Tonight I am joined again by Mr. Dimitri Cherny. He is in South Carolina. You guys have to get off your ass and vote tomorrow. He is in District 1 running for House of Reps, and he is running as a Republican. So thank you so much for joining us again, Dimitri.
I'm gonna correct you again, Joy. I'm not running as a Republican. I'm running in the Republican primary.
Gotcha.
Right.
Gotcha. I saw your face as soon as I said that. I saw it. So, since we're on that topic, for people who didn't see our first show, do you want to kind of explain, why you chose to go that route?
Yeah. So I ran in 2014 as a write-in candidate and did pretty well. Actually, for a write-in candidate, I did really well. I got like 6% of the vote, and so that encouraged me to run again in 2016 on the Democratic ticket. And it was Bernie's year, and I was very excited for Bernie. And I've got a Bernie tattoo that I got I guess just after I kicked my campaign off. We did that. So I was very excited about all of that to happen. And anyways, did the campaign in 2016 and did nothing by the book, and ended up getting more votes than anybody else has ever gotten in the first congressional district in the way it is currently defined right now. And got more votes last year than any of the other 2016, more votes than any of the other Democratic challengers for the other 6 congressional districts in South Carolina. And yet we all fell short by at least 56,000 votes. That was as close as any of us came. So after I scratched my head for a while, I figured out, okay, it must be gerrymandering. That's the way it is. So I thought about it for a couple of days and realized, the only way I could possibly beat this is to run in the Republican primary, because we have open primaries. We're one of the 24 states that have open primaries, meaning anybody can walk into the primary voting booth and say, I want a Republican ballot or I want a Democratic ballot, and then you vote for whoever you want on those tickets. And same thing with the candidates here. We don't have to declare as either a Republican or a Democrat. We just you pay your literally here. There's no collection of signatures. There's nothing like that. You pay $3,450 to the state election. Well, actually, you pay it to the party that you want to run on their ticket. And so I pay $3,450 to the Republican Party of South Carolina, and I'm on the ballot. Now, what was interesting about that was I thought maybe they'd give me some of the perks of actually being on the Republican ballot, but no, the only perk I got is I'm on the Republican ballot, and there's nothing that came along with that at all. I was not included in any of the Republican-sponsored debates. Well, actually, I was for one of the counties up here, and they were pretty good. But yeah, it was, I was immediately denounced by the Republican leadership here, and that actually made it kind of fun for me. So it gave me a marketing ploy to run off of, and I made a bunch of videos, funny videos, a lot of satire, and a lot of people didn't get it. Because apparently not everybody understands satire.
Yeah.
But it was fun. So it was fun to do that. And but yeah, so the idea is tomorrow people can either vote for, again, they can ask for the Republican ticket or they can ask for the Democratic ticket. If they ask for the Republican ticket, they vote for me, and I'm running against the incumbent, Mark Sanford, and another challenger, Katie Arrington, who is a huge Trump supporter. In fact, that's pretty much all she has said anything about is she's a bold supporter of Trump's conservative agenda, and that she is against everything that Mark Sanford has ever done. But she hasn't really mentioned any plans for the future at all. So I'm hoping I get enough, or a number of votes, maybe enough to push me over tomorrow, from sensible Republicans who see that they haven't really liked Sanford, and they're really afraid of Katie Arrington. So we'll see what happens.
So that's the difference between you and the two other Republican candidates. However, what makes you different from those running in the Democratic primary side?
Um, um, uh, there's so many funny things I could say right now, but I'm gonna play this one straight. Oh, that would be fun. Yeah. So what distinguishes me? Neither of them. Well, okay. As I told you in the last interview, I really get into this whole politics thing. Not politics. Running for government, running for Congress in particular, because of my learning about modern monetary theory. And as you know, Joy, and anybody who's listening that's learned about modern monetary theory, once you learn it, you go, oh my God, we can spend money where we have to spend it. We don't have to be constrained, and we can actually fix every single goddamn problem in the world because we're not constrained by dollars. So that was it. I wanted to shout it from the rooftops. So in 2014, I thought the bully pulpit of running for Congress would help me do that, and again in 2016, and the same thing again in 2018. Well, the two Democratic opponents. Well, I don't know if they're going to be opponents or not. We'll see what happens tomorrow. Don't understand that. Don't understand economics. One is a young guy, 30 something, 38, maybe, yeah, probably 38. So what's he, 20 years younger than me? Had been a ocean engineer for a while. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but then I went to law school, and she's been practicing, I think, construction law for the past few years. Nice guy, not terribly exciting, but he's raised a shitload of money, $600,000 at the last reporting. So he may be on. I mean, that's before the primary, so that's unheard of. And if he wins the primary, which is probably pretty likely, he'll probably raise more than $1 million. And I'm not sure where it's coming from, but very few people in this state ever raise that amount of money. I guess the last one was Elizabeth Colbert Bush. So there are some very deep pockets here that like establishment candidates. This guy Joe Cunningham, not a Bernie fan, very establishment, kind of middle of the road. He really hasn't said a whole lot about anything. He's just kind of a middle of the road Democrat. Toby Smith is probably mid 40, late 40s, something like that. Yeah, I think she's 48, and African American woman, and she had a career for a while in the CIA as an analyst, and then has been doing some sort of social justice stuff around here, and she's a ordained minister. Nice lady. Again, doesn't understand bigger economic issues at all. So I'm not really sure what she'd do. I mean, they're both good, middle of the road Democrats. Nothing new, nothing special.
Okay, so Matthew, one of our buddies here, he said that we can all have ponies, and I totally agree. So thank you for pointing that out, Matthew. So you actually, when I was researching you, you were one of the founding members of Black Lives Matter in Charleston.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So what made you decide to join and start that?
Well, it was that and the whole thing of Eric Garner being choked, and then everything that was happening up, what was the name of the town now, north of St. Louis. So that whole summer of discontent, it became very disturbing. And one of the things I told you last time here is for people that haven't been to Charleston, and or South Carolina, race and racism is a huge determinant of what happens around here. It really hasn't changed much since the Jim Crow era, and it's frightening to see. And if you come down here as a liberal Yankee or progressive, and you fall in with a bad social justice crowd, pretty quickly you're going to get really pissed off at the establishment and the way things are run here, and the way things just plain are not fair for people that don't have all the advantages that some of us have, or the advantages that our society likes for us. And fortunately, I have all of those advantages, and I kind of feel like I should use my advantages to help people that don't have those, and to make things better. I kind of look at it from the perspective of I think when you get to a certain age, and it seems like almost everybody gets here maybe when they're in their 50s, and some people it's a little later. Some people it's not until they get on their deathbeds, but you realize life is short, and we really only have one life to live. And so I think, why the hell are we making it so difficult for some people just because they look different than us, they speak a different language, their culture is a little different, they love different people, we don't understand what they would think. I think that's real bastardly, really. And especially when you combine that with the knowledge of modern monetary theory, and you realize, no, this isn't a zero-sum game. We don't have to make it so it is. I mean, the way we play it now, yeah, it is a zero-sum game. Either somebody has dollars or somebody doesn't have dollars. It's one way or the other, but it doesn't have to be that way at all. So, I mean, that's really what I want to do. I want to make a better world and turn around an awful lot of things that are heading downhill really quickly here. There are a lot of tipping points that either we're coming up on or maybe we've already passed on some things. And I feel like, I want to leave a better world, or at least a livable world for the next generations. I don't have any grandkids, but I have a lot of friends that have grandkids. I have a lot of friends, in their 20s and 30s that have kids, little babies. And I don't know if you saw my recent video, Joy, but I had a bunch of all those photos in there were photos of friends of mine's babies. And I mean, that really is the thing that keeps me going on this. And if I don't win tomorrow, I'm doing it again in 2020, because I don't think there's anything better I can do with my remaining years than doing this.
That's awesome. Yeah, speaking of people of color and how it is in Charleston, I've seen videos. I don't know if Trisha is watching, but Trisha has sent me videos of from prisons in the state, and yeah. I've never seen anything so abhorrent. So now you do, on your platform, you do have for-profit prisons, getting rid of those. So why did you put that on your platform? What are your thoughts?
I have a friend, a guy I befriended a few years ago named Max Parthas, and I did a shout out to him on our last interview too. Max Parthas, Parthas. Google him, and he's a staunch abolitionist. And I didn't really know what an abolitionist was before I met Max. But you listen to Max for 20 minutes, and I'm sure you can find lots of videos of Max speaking for 20 minutes. And you too will be an abolitionist. You'll understand that the 13th Amendment didn't abolish slavery. It simply shifted slavery from public to prisons. And I mean, there is a what they call the exception clause in the 13th Amendment that says slavery is abolished from the United States except for those duly committed of a crime. And so that means people that are in prison are slaves still. And because of that, it's led to all of the injustices that we have now. And after the 13th Amendment and after the end of the I forgot the name, but there was a black renaissance in here after the Civil War, and that really triggered the whole Jim Crow era, where suddenly all these white people are freaked out that black people are going to have equal rights to them, and for a number of years, 4 or 5, things were going really damn well for everybody here in America. And then the South Carolina Constitution was changed to make it so that black people basically could not win. That was kind of the start of it. Didn't happen until the Civil Rights era, but that's when open primaries became a thing here in South Carolina, so that the ruling white party could always run their candidates in the minority party, whichever party it was. Back then, it happened to be the Democrats that started that, but now it switched shortly afterwards in the 70s to the Republicans, and so they've been in charge ever since then. But it's that 13th Amendment, the fact that slavery was not actually abolished, has led to all of the atrocities that we've had in America in the 150 years since. And that, I think we need to go back to those basic documents and get that right before we can move on to other things.
Absolutely. And also, along that line, you do, on your platform, you talk about legalization of cannabis, which kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
Obviously it mostly affects people of color. So do you also believe, do you support their records being expunged then if they should get out of prison because it becomes legalized?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've done a huge injustice to an awful lot of people for the last 50 years, whatever it is, whatever the length of time is. Yeah, and I think we ought to do a big apology and a retribution type of thing to everybody out there once cannabis is legalized across the country, and give them, those people, retraining and more than just a pat on the back, but make them offers to run all of the dispensaries and run that whole business. I'm really concerned that cannabis, and it looks like it's already starting to do this, is going to be taken over by the big cigarette manufacturing companies. And I think that would be a huge injustice, because so many people have been struggling with that business for years and know how to run it well and know how to grow good weed. And I think if suddenly rich white guys that are already rich are going to be making even more money off of it, I think that just doubles down on the injustice that we've done to these people over the past 50 years or longer.
Absolutely. You, that being said, you do support a federal job guarantee?
A what?
A federal job guarantee?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, exactly. And yeah, as I said last time, I think the federal job guarantee has as many good reasons for doing it. If I want to be a bastard about it, not just because we can give people jobs, but from an economics perspective, of pegging the value of the dollar to some known quantity, which is, if the minimum job guarantee wage is going to be $20 an hour, then we know a dollar is worth 3 minutes of labor of Americans. That is the value of the dollar. And now it doesn't change. And as long as the federal job guarantee has a fixed rate that they pay people, that is the value of the dollar. So the value of the dollar doesn't fluctuate. And right away, that eliminates all of the concerns about, oh no, if yes, the government can print all the money that they want, but then, what's going to happen with inflation? Well, and they always talk about, well, the value of the dollar, we're not going to be able to buy this and that. Well, if you have the job guarantee along with that, no, the value of the dollar is pegged. That's it. So everything's going to revolve around that instead. So that was kind of a good point we didn't talk about last time. But yes, of course, I think the federal job guarantee is a fantastic program. And as I mentioned last time, one of the things I'd like to do is make it so it's a grant program also for entrepreneurs. So if an entrepreneur comes up with an idea, and when I say entrepreneurs, I'm thinking not of your typical, not an entrepreneur that looks like me, a guy in his 50s who's run a few companies, though that might be possible too. But I'm thinking of kids fresh out of high school and out of college, and we should have an entrepreneurial program in schools where they know how to run businesses, and they think at an early age, when they're still in their teens, what's missing in my community that I could provide. And if they go through the numbers and they figure the whole thing out and they realize, this is something that really needs to be done in my community, but it's not something that I could ever make a profit at, well, then they could apply to the job guarantee program and say, look, here's my job plan, here's my business plan. This is how many people I would employ. These are the good things it would do for the community, but it could never be profitable. Can you give me the money to actually pay these people to do that? And I think that would be a fantastic way to make it so that the job guarantee program is not socialism or communism. It's capitalism, but it's subsidized capitalism where we're doing good things in the community. I mean, the good example is recycling. Right now, the Chinese stopped taking our recycling, our plastics and our cans and things like that. So now suddenly recycling is no longer cost effective anymore. So, when I was driving truck a number of times, I would take loads of things that should be recycled, big bricks of plastics and papers and cans and all sorts of things to these recycling centers, which are many, many acres of big bricks of plastics and cans and things all stacked up, and the place stinks. It stinks like a little bit better than a dump, but it still stinks. And there's guys driving around with forklifts and putting all these things on the conveyor belts, and then there's another truck that's taking the thing out of the end of the conveyor belt. But I think most of those businesses are probably shut down right now because they can't afford it. They can't sell the final product out to China. So what do? Well, that'd be a perfect thing for the job guarantee program. So maybe the flow of recycled material could still be cost effective if you didn't have to pay for the people that are actually doing the labor. And of course, there would be controls over the whole thing of, how much profit could one of these companies make? Maybe it's absolutely no profit, but it does give a number of people a decent income. It makes a decent living for it. And of course, you're going to have to pay the executives a little bit more. The people that really are into it 24 hours a day, yeah, they want to earn a little bit better living. So you have to have that kind of flexibility when you're working with people that are running businesses. But I think that'd be a great way to meld the job guarantee program with entrepreneurial programs also.
Right on. One of our teammates, Sam, he just wanted clarification. Sam, Dimitri is totally on board with MMT. He actually went to the conference. Where was that? Kentucky?
Kansas City.
Kansas, yes.
Last year, yeah, of course.
So people always get hype when I have candidates on who know what a federal job guarantee is. I kind of hope you would by now, but
Yeah, when I was driving trucks in 2011, I studied economics and history. This is for Sam or whoever else is listening. And I didn't, for 2 years, I was out on the highways of America, and I never once turned on the radio. I listened to podcasts and audiobooks. And in the comments on some podcasts, somebody mentioned MMT, and I jumped down that rabbit hole, and I've never come out. And within, a week or so, I emailed Warren Mosler. And so Warren and I had this email conversation going on for the past few years. And we've met now a couple of times. We met, I guess we met down in St. Croix for the first time in person, and then we met again last year at Kansas City. In fact, I'm still emailing Warren. He had mentioned something to me in Kansas City last summer that I've been chewing on for the past almost year now, and something else triggered it the other day, and I wrote him an email about that. So I'm following another path down there, all economics types of stuff. So. It's fun. I'm always thinking about this stuff. We gotta fix
awesome.
The world.
You on your platform, you do have immigration, comprehensive immigration reform, and path to citizenship. Do you have a lot of immigrants in your district?
Yeah, I'm not sure what the percentage is. It's probably like 6% of the people that are here. So what's that going to be? 50,000, 60,000, something like that. In fact, yesterday I was at a what they call Festival of May, the Festival de Mayo. Yeah, Festival de Mayo. So it's sort of the Cinco de Mayo and the 20th of May, also all combined together, put on by a Hispanic newspaper that's run down at the south end of my district off of Hilton Head. And it was great. I just had a little booth there for myself, my little banner behind me, and handing out cards and talking to people, and drinking margaritas and Mexican beer. And it was fun being around. So many Hispanic people and people from all of the American countries. So it was really good. And I've traveled pretty extensively in South America, not at all in Central America. My Spanish absolutely sucks, but it's good enough to get by on. So And again, there's funny things I could say, but they'll probably be taken the wrong way. I'm just going to tell you this. So I'm walking around this festival yesterday, and everybody's just so friendly, just so nice. And I'm wearing exactly this, the same thing. This is my shtick. I got to wear the same little uniform and shorts and sandals. And walking around, we're watching the people on stage doing their performance, and I realized I'm taller than everybody, and I'm a little guy. I'm only 5'8", and I'm thinking, maybe this is why I like these festivals so much, because I'm taller than everybody. Because usually I'm the shortest guy in the room. You go to Germany, and I mean, everybody in Germany is like 6'5". And so everywhere I've always been in my career in the high tech industry, I've always been the shortest guy in the room. But yeah, anyways, it was just lovely being around all these people. It's had some really good discussions yesterday too. So.
Yeah, the pictures looked beautiful, except I don't understand the toilet bowls with candy. That one I don't understand. I've never seen such a thing. That was so bizarre.
Little girls dipping this thing in that little tiny plastic toilet bowl, and it has a powder. It's like a sour powder on the candy pop kind of thing, and offers it to me to lick.
Aww.
It's so cute.
You also talk about election fraud and electoral reform, which is, to me, one of my biggest passions, because obviously we'd have Bernie if, we didn't have that shit. So are you doing anything tomorrow to kind of, do you have people who are going to be at polling stations to observe, or what are you hoping to find tomorrow?
I'm not going to do that, and I don't have any people doing that, but I think I just have to trust that the South Carolina Election Commission is pretty fair with these things. I have heard stories that election poll workers don't know the details, and when they look at your registration, number one, they're going to ask for your ID, and if it doesn't match, it's a mess, and even though that shouldn't be an issue at all. And the other thing they do is they'll look at your voter record, and because we have open primaries, people can vote in the Republican or the Democratic primary, and therefore as soon as you vote in the primary, you're on the list as being a Republican or a Democratic voter. And so some of the poll workers don't understand that just because you happen to have voted in the Democratic primary last year doesn't mean you have to get the Democratic ballot this time. You could, and so I put out a video today where that was one of the things I mentioned. Don't let these little old ladies bully you into taking the wrong ballot, because you can take any ballot you want. It doesn't matter what it says on there, and that has happened to people, and a lot of people are just cowed by it. Poll worker, it's some little old lady, and I have to listen to her. So, and that's not right.
I mean, California was. The paper ballots, they were handing out over 3 million of them, which they never ended up counting. So yeah, it's
from last Tuesday.
What's that?
From last Tuesday?
No, from Bernie's.
2016. Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah.
They just stuffed them in boxes.
Yeah. Right.
It's incredible. So that's always my biggest concern.
We're on computer systems here, which I guess makes it easier in some ways, a lot neater. There's no paper ballots, but there's also no guarantee that your vote is really going somewhere, and that kind of freaks me out. So, but I think at some point, that's beyond my control, and I have to trust that the system is working. Though I'll tell you, when I analyzed the results from the election in 2016, and I found that we all lost by at least 56,000 votes, most of us by 70,000 votes or more, I thought right away, whoa, what is going on? I mean, is somebody messing with the numbers here or what? There was 3 of us that lost by 70,000, 71,000, 74,000. I'm thinking, what is that? It's just a little too freaky. But I think I just have to trust that they're fair about that. So, but if you want to, I'd like to talk about some of the things that I think we need to fix. Not for election fraud, but this is my third time doing this. And here in South Carolina, there is not another candidate that has ever run 3 times. And if I don't win tomorrow, I'm going to run 4 times. I'll tell you what, I got a shitload of knowledge that nobody else has. Not even the people that are the party officials here. And one of the frustrating things for me has been that because I'm off the bell curve, I'm definitely on the fringes of normalcy for so many categories, but especially for politics. I don't raise a whole lot of money. I mean, in this campaign, literally, I've raised, I think, $1,000, and that's it. And other than that, I'm self-funded, but not like my one of my competitors tomorrow, Katie Arrington, is self-funded. She says, my husband and I put in about $500,000. So no, I put in about $6,000 of my own money for this thing. But because of that, you can't buy the advertising that you need to buy. And if we want to change Congress, let me take a step back. We have to change Congress. I mean, things are so broken. Have you seen, Joy, the show? There's a web show called The Swamp.
No.
3 episodes out. You can find it on Facebook. Or Google The Swamp. Somebody's producing it, and they have 3 episodes, and they're following 3 or 4 freshman congressmen who are all Republicans. They all really, somebody needs to sit them down in a room and teach them MMT, because they're all Tea Party guys, just like my main competitor, Mark Sanford, who believe the debt and the deficit are the biggest things that are threatening us. That said, they're pretty good guys. I think their hearts are in the right place. They want to do the right things. And in this show, they're talking about what they're up against and what they actually have to do to get ahead in Congress, to get on these committees and things. It's frightening. I mean, it's absolutely frightening. I'd say I think it's 3 episodes right now. They're probably 20-minute episodes, so it's an hour of watch time. Well worth the time to watch. And you'll come away astounded, absolutely astounded that there are such problems in Congress, which boil down to they make the rules, and if the rule doesn't happen to suit the majority for that particular instance, whatever the vote is they're going to do, they'll change the rule just for that vote and then change it back afterwards. And it's astounding to me. And both of the leadership of the Democratic and the Republican parties are basically doing the same thing. They're giving each other a pass for, as long as we're doing legislation for our donors, and as long as we know that we have big money coming in, and the lobbyists are paying for the new freshman congressmen to get into these positions in committees, and it's like, oh my God, it's absolutely frightening. So the only way out of this is we need to have a majority of people in Congress that don't buy into that thing. I mean, it has to be a majority so we can suddenly overthrow all of the rules and all of the seniority inside of there, because most of the rules that are set up in Congress are set up by the parties, not by the Constitution. The Constitution didn't say anything about any of this stuff. And we need to basically go in there and set up a brand new set of rules where we're focusing on the things that we need to focus for, that our constituents are concerned about, and for our unborn constituents for the future. Those are the things that we really need to work on. But so to do that, we need to get 300 new people in Congress who aren't ruled by money. And the only way you're going to do that is they're going to be people that got into the Congress that didn't raise a whole lot of money and were able to do it pretty much either on their own dime or just nickel and dime contributions from people, raising just a few $1,000s. When I was doing my biking the low country thing in 2016, this is where I towed my little boat behind my bicycle and went 1,000 miles in 80 days. And I'd stop every day, maybe 2 or 3 grocery stores and Walmarts, and just park in front of them. And usually after about an hour or so, the grocery store manager would come out and kick me out and get me out of there. And I thought that was just a huge injustice to democracy, to America, because where else can a candidate meet people and talk with them freely? And that was a problem that I discovered back then, that there are no public forums, no public areas where if somebody is interested, if a citizen actually is interested in discussing things with their candidates, where do they go to see that? Now, I thought Facebook was going to be that. Here's my slam for Facebook. Fucking Facebook. Are we on Facebook right now? Yeah, we're on Facebook. Fucking Facebook. Fuck you, Zuckerberg. What the hell's his name? Is that his name?
Yeah.
I'll tell you. I thought this was going to do it for me. I thought, I'd be able to spend $1,000 in Facebook ads and get my message out there to the 30,000 or 50,000 people that I need. But no, they never certified me as a candidate. And so I cannot advertise on Facebook. They seem to think I am not a real candidate. The South Carolina Election Commission thinks I'm a real candidate. The Republican Party of South Carolina thinks I'm a real candidate. 119,000 people that voted for me in 2016 think I'm a real candidate. But Facebook doesn't think I'm a real candidate, so I cannot put up my political ads. They keep saying, edit your ad so it's not political, and then no, what the hell's the point of that? So Facebook is not that public forum out there. I'm not sure what we can do, but this is a problem we need to all think about, and we need to come up with some way that we can get through very little money, and maybe free, and maybe it's all government paid even, because what is more important to the survival of our republic than making sure that we have good people going in there? Now, of course, the people that are in there now aren't concerned about their jobs being replaced. And so that's one of the problems. They would never vote for anything that would allow other people to upend this whole system, because they benefit from it. I mean, everybody that's in Congress now raised and spent more than $1 million to get in there. Well, except for maybe a couple of guys. And so they think the system's working fine for them. But they all know they're on the take. And again, I recommend everybody watch that web show. I think it's definitely called The Swamp, and it's astounding, just frightening.
One of our viewers, Ray, thank you, Ray. He just posted a link in the comment section for anyone who's watching. It kind of reminds me of the Circus. Did you ever see that? It could be Showtime or HBO, but it sounds comparable. So I digress. You also have the environment on your platform, and that's kind of, I say that in a vague way, but what are some of the most important things in that respect to you that you want to work on?
Well, the first congressional district of South Carolina is, I think it has an average elevation of 10 feet above sea level. And so that means roughly half of it is much less than that. And where I was yesterday down on Hilton Head Island, I think the average elevation is like 3 feet above sea level. So we down here, regardless of political affiliation, are well aware that the oceans are rising and things are changing, and beaches are being eroded, and we're paying millions of dollars every year or two for beach renourishment programs where they suck up sand from out at sea, about 2 miles out at sea, and then, believe it or not, they set up these huge pipes about 3 feet in diameter, 4 feet in diameter down the beach, and this sandy water that they bring in from out at sea, they redistribute it on the beaches to build these beaches back up again. And they do this every couple of years because they get washed away by rising tides, storms, things like that. I mean, basically down here we're living on 20 islands or peninsulas, and these are all barrier islands, and barrier islands move. And we unfortunately have people that have claimed the land on these barrier islands, and so it's theirs, and they get really pissed off with the town when their beachfront goes away. I rode my bike down Folly Beach. Was it last weekend? The weekend before, and there was a house a couple of years ago that I couldn't believe they allowed this house to be built, because it was like 100 feet from the high tide line, and right at the edge of the breakwater of riprap, big rocks. And there are no rocks here, so all the rocks that they build these ripraps with, they bring them in from Georgia or something like that. So there was not a rock anywhere like south of Columbia. Within 100 miles of the shore here, there were no rocks. It's just sand and mud everywhere. So they have to bring these rocks in. So anyways, I rode my bike down by this house, and sure enough, this house is not 100 feet away from the water anymore. It's like 10 feet away from the water now. Oh my gosh. And yeah, and that's just in 2 years. And this is, probably a $2 million home. And it's up on stilts, so it's 20 feet in the air, and then it goes up another 50 feet or so. But yeah, why they allow people to still build out there, I'm not really sure. So anyways, my plan is we're going to have to migrate away from here. I mean, we're going to have to, as the oceans rise, and they're only going to rise more and more quickly every year, we're going to have to do something to move millions of people away from the coasts and make it so that people don't lose their entire life savings, because here in America, basically people's life savings are in real estate. And also make it so that when people are migrating away from the ocean, how do we make sure that they're not being taken advantage of? That we don't have a bunch of grifters coming in and robbing them of their savings for one reason or another. So I have a program that I put together some years ago. Maybe it was when I was driving trucks. I don't remember now. But it's basically a way that we could gracefully evacuate from the sea. And over time, we make it so that we have new cities that we're building 100 feet above sea level, which should protect us for probably the next, well, hopefully if we can stop the CO2 from reaching 500 parts per million, which may be just in 3 years or 4 years or so, we can stop the oceans at lower than 100 feet of rise. But at this point right now, we're at 410, I think we're at now, 410 parts per million of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. And the last time we were at that, the oceans were 30 feet higher than they are right now. So it just means that if we stop putting all carbon in the atmosphere right now, and we wait long enough, things are going to warm up to the point where enough ice is going to melt that the oceans will be 30 feet higher. And that means that my district is gone. I mean, even the high spots of my district aren't more than 30 feet above sea level. So it would all be gone.
Wow. I went to Venice in Italy, and that's kind of, it was just surreal just going down the canals on the gondola, because the water is like at these people's front door. Like, it is right there. They don't come out of their front door unless it's an emergency. They lower baskets to get bread and food. They come up with the gondola and put it in their basket. It's surreal. It's like sci-fi. The water is right there.
Well, that's how Charleston will be, and right now there's no plans in place at all. Nobody's really talking about this. A few of us freaks are talking about it, but in general, nobody in government is talking about it, because they're afraid that they're going to lose voters if they talk about it. They talk about scary stuff. Oh, we can talk about guns. That's scary, but you talk about stuff where you're going to lose all your property values. No. And so, like right now in Charleston, our only plan is, in fact, we don't even call it a flooding problem. We call it a drainage problem. We never talk about the front end. We talk about the back end. How do we get all the water out when it happens to come in here? So it's not a flooding problem. But the plan now is to raise our lower battery, which is sort of against the main, where the main ocean is coming in. It's still a big harbor, a big bay out there. To raise it up 3 feet, and that's it. And so 3 feet, we may top 3 feet by 2050. We may top it by 2100. But the day we top it, the next day it's going to be a little higher. And the next week it's going to be a little higher. And the next year it's going to be quite a bit higher, because this isn't a steady, uprise like this. It's a hockey stick, or it's an exponential curve. of the way the water is going to rise. So one year it's going to be 3 feet, and the next year it's going to be 3 feet and 2 inches, and the next year it's going to be 3 feet and 4 inches, and then it's going to be 3 feet and 8 inches, and it's going to keep on going like that. So nobody has any way of dealing with that at all. But I've come up with a plan where we would compensate people for their houses, that they would when they want to leave, if they're in a area that is low enough, subject to flooding, we'd say, we'll buy out your house, and we will dismantle their house and take it all apart. And eventually, if you do that with enough houses, all of the land goes back to essentially national seashore at that point. And what we do is we compensate people for their house, but we say, here's the deal. You can't spend all of this money. We're going to keep some of it in escrow. You can spend it as long as you're going to be buying some place that's more than 100 feet above sea level. So after a couple of decades, all of these towns are slowly getting abandoned. And the only people that are left there are going to be extremely wealthy, which is okay if they want to continue staying there. But we're not going to compensate people after some certain point. There's going to be like, okay, you had plenty of time now. But if you want to build some concrete bunker out on Folly Beach that's going to be there for the next 200 years when the water is 30 feet higher, that's fine. Go ahead and live out there, but we're not going to compensate you for that. So, but that's the idea. We migrate people inland and we build new cities. And I see this as a fantastic opportunity to do it right, because so many of the things that we've done are built on historic precedent. If you've ever been to Boston, I kind of grew up in the Boston area, and Boston is basically designed around cow trails. They call it the hub city because everything's a spoke, but it's from the central commons in Boston. Everything is a spoke leading out, which is basically a trail heading off in some direction. And it's not an ideally designed city in any way, and no city really is. But we could do things an awful lot better with what we know about urban design right now, and walkable cities and livable cities. And so we could build Nuevo Charleston, 100 feet upland, which is only 40 miles inland from here, and build a brand new city. And it could be eventually at the edge of the ocean, but we could migrate all of the industry and all the people up there and do things correctly. And again, all of this is only possible because we know MMT. We know where dollars come from. And we know that we don't have to tax people to fund all of this stuff. We can do whatever we want to. We can do the right things.
Right on. Let's say you win the primary tomorrow and you win in November. Mm-hmm. What is the absolute first thing on your agenda?
I'm going to get on the Stephen Colbert show. I'm serious. I think if I win the primary tomorrow, I'll probably be on the Stephen Colbert show next week. But no, as a one guy like me with crazy MMT ideas in Congress, I can't do shit, and we all know it. I can't get onto any committees because I'm not going to have any money to spend. And now that I've watched this swamp, I'd need thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars to get on any committee, and I wouldn't have that money, and I am not going to kowtow to lobbyists to get that money, because that's what they do now. They pay for you to get on these committees with their money, and I'm not going to do that at all. So I'm not going to play their goddamn game. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get on every single talk show and every single podcast, and for the 2 years that I'm in there, I'm going to tell everybody exactly what's going on in Congress, and I'm going to try to encourage another 200, 300, 400 people to run in 2020. And if I don't do this until 2020, it'll be after that. As soon as I get in there, I think this is the only way we can do this. And until we actually get a majority in there, there's nothing any of us can do effectively. I mean, I would, of course, join the Progressive Caucus. I'd probably join the Black Caucus. I'd join maybe the Democrats. I don't know. I don't know how I'd vote depending on what the votes are that are coming up. I listened to Mark Sanford, who is the guy who's in there right now, and he's way down in the weeds. And some of his we've done a couple of forums together, and some of his responses to criticisms of his votes get way down in the weeds, and we're all like, "Oh, Mark, we don't want to hear that. What we want to hear is, sort of the higher level stuff." But he's down into the, HR 165, and I think that's probably part of the problem that we have in Congress, that people get up there and they get stuck in the weeds, and they lose their morals, they lose their ethics, they lose the big picture of what they're supposed to be doing up there.
Yeah, absolutely. What is something else that you want to address that we haven't talked about yet?
It's on my list over here. So along those lines, you said, what's the first thing I do? I get on all these talk shows. I think I'm getting this sense that, maybe it's more than a sense. We need politics to get sexy. Maybe we need politicians to get sexy. I don't know. But imagine...
Bernie's pretty sexy.
Well, don't get me started. But it's almost like we need instead of a people magazine, we need a politics magazine. And it talks about all of maybe not the dirt, but it talks about the personalities of the people that are up there. And again, this web show, The Swamp, kind of goes into that. But frankly, these 3 or 4 guys, these Congress people they're pretty dry. I mean, they're pretty boring. But I think for us to get the younger generation involved, here in South Carolina, I saw a figure. People under the age of 30 in the past elections have been voting at only a 4% rate. 4% of the people under 30 have voted in their lives. How do you increase that? I mean, what are they doing instead? And how would you make it sexier? And I was thinking back to, who was the last politician who everybody really admired and was kind of sexy? Maybe it was Bobby Kennedy,
Mm.
I mean, way back, that was long before you were born. I was just a little guy when he was shot. But since then, I don't know. There hasn't really been much glamour out there among the politicians. And I think maybe that's something that we need to bring back, just to get younger people involved, get them interested. And the other thing is to make them aware that what happens in your daily life is happening mostly because of legislation that was put into place some years ago. And the legislation that's going to be put into place tomorrow is going to affect your daily life maybe next week, probably definitely next year. Yeah, I don't know if you saw, Joy, the Supreme Court just supported Ohio's right to purge their voter rolls. So here's something that's going to really affect people. So for people that are registered to vote but haven't voted in a year, or maybe 2, I guess it's probably going to be up to the state election commissions. They'll be able to purge their voter rolls. So you think you're registered to vote, but because you didn't vote in the last election, you go into this election because it matters to you, and you can't vote. And how would that be? So, and now the Supreme Court upholds that. So those are the kinds of things that what's happening in Washington makes a huge effect on our lives, our daily lives. I mean, basically, the reason 90% of us are struggling, living paycheck to paycheck, is because of legislation over the last 30 years that's made that a possibility. So I think we, as I was going to say educators, I guess I have been an educator at parts of my life, and you are definitely an educator, and we are educators. We need to make that more clear to people, to the bubbas out there, that this is a problem, that the only way you're going to fix it is by electing good people. And it can't be between Democrat and Republican. It has to be something more intelligent than that. People have to dig in deeper.
For the people, for the corporations. To me, that's it. I don't look at party. I'll vote for any. I vote person, not party. Yeah. So if you take money, you're not getting my vote.
See, when you say corporations, I like digging in a little bit deeper, because I've worked for some big corporations. IBM is the only one people would know by name, and I knew a lot of the vice presidents at IBM, and I know what their incentive program is, an incentive plan is. And basically, it is be a heartless bastard and you'll become a millionaire. That is the incentive program for most of these corporations. And that incentive program is put in place by the corporate managers who are given the blessing by the board of directors, who are essentially working for the stockholders, because the stockholders want to make maximum profit. So the problem stems from people wanting to make maximum profits in a minimum amount of time, and compensating people, putting in incentive programs in place that make sure that they are going to do whatever the hell they can to make those maximum profits. So it's not corporations, it's greedy people. And if you fix the greed at its source, you make it so that people can't keep making millions of dollars every year, then the whole system just kind of falls apart and cascades down, and all of those dollars that would have flowed to the top no longer do that. So that's one of my plans, that I'd like to make it so that we put in place what some people are calling a maximum wage. It's not a maximum wage. You can get paid as much as you want, but we're gonna make sure there is a maximum take-home pay, and get rid of all this capital gains crap. And basically it is that whatever you're compensated with, whether it's through interest or whether it's through actual compensation for doing a job, whatever that number is, you can only take home 100 times more than the minimum person in our society is taking home. The guy who's scrubbing toilets at McDonald's, who's making right now $7.25 an hour, working 40 hours a week, can make about $15,000 a year. So 100 times that would be $1.5 million. And so that means LeBron James, I think he's actually a very good man, but I love to pick on him because he's so well known. I think he's making now $20 million a year or something like that. This would mean that LeBron James wouldn't be taking home, probably right now he's taking home 60% or 70% of $20 million. He'd only be taking home $1.5 million a year. The rest of those dollars are all going to go to federal taxes. So right away, I don't even know, does he still play for the Cavaliers? I haven't paid attention. Whatever team he's playing for is going to say, yo, LeBron, we're not going to pay $18.5 million in taxes anymore. Why don't we cut your salary down to $3 million a year? And then you're going to have basically a 50% tax rate, and then you're capped at $1.5 million. And now suddenly, all of those dollars that the team had to raise through ticket prices and advertising and things like that, they don't need to do that anymore. So ticket prices go down, all their advertising budget goes down, there isn't so much advertising going on. And what ends up happening is, now instead of having, I don't know how many basketball NBA teams there are out there, instead of having, let's say, 20 NBA teams, suddenly you can have 80 NBA teams. So even small cities like Charleston, or where do you live, Joy?
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Harrisburg, Pennsylvania could now have the Harrisburg River Dog NBA teams or something like that. It's a lovely town. I like Harrisburg. And so suddenly you'd have now, instead of just, say, 200 professional NBA basketball players, there'd be 2,000 NBA basketball players. So all these kids that are really good but didn't quite make the cut, now they're in there too. So suddenly the wealth is spread so much further. Ticket prices are lower. Everything just gets so much better as soon as you cap the amount of take-home pay out there. And it really comes down to, because a lot of people say, well, that's just not fair, they earn those dollars. Well, I've worked with people that were making millions of dollars a year, and I'll tell you, yeah, to some point they're earning them, but there's some point at which you go, is your time and your effort really more than 100 times more valuable to society than the guy who's scrubbing toilets? And it becomes a moral question at that point. Why should somebody be taking home that many dollars more for doing not really something that's more helpful to society than scrubbing toilets or flipping burgers or whatever it is? So,
right. Interesting concept for sure. If there's something you want to leave our viewers so that they get out and vote for you tomorrow or recommend you to people in South Carolina, share this interview, anything, what do you want to leave the viewers with?
But I think it's, what I'm trying to do is be one of the first people to break Congress up. And at some point, one of us is going to have to do it. Somebody's going to have to get in there and flip the whole system upside down. I'm hopeful that enough people got that message from me this year. I've tried to I've tried to show how non-standard I am, and I think, Joy, you've seen probably most of my funny videos. I've tried to make sure people know I'm not your typical candidate at all, and yet I'm very concerned about all of this stuff, and I'm pretty smart. I've given this stuff a lot of thought. I have a great education in economics, and I think I have the solutions, along with some of the best economists in the world, to ways that we can fix these things and basically keep America and keep the world going for our kids and grandkids. So I'm hopeful that people will recognize that until they actually say, you know, what the hell, let's just give this guy a chance and let him try it. Let's see what he can do for 2 years. I certainly can't do any worse than Mark Sanford's been doing. And Katie Arrington is promised to support Trump's bold conservative agenda, and we know where that's going. So I'm hopeful people will just go, you know what, let's just give this guy a shot and try it out. And that's pretty much what they did last year with Trump. So I'm hopeful it'll happen again with me this year. So 24 hours from now, we will know.
Yes, you better keep me updated. I'm going to be all over the place tomorrow. There are, let's see, 5 primaries tomorrow. There is, of course, South Carolina, Maine, North Dakota, Virginia, and Nevada. Nevada I've been following quite closely.
And yet nobody's corrected your pronunciation of Nevada. Nevada.
No, I don't like it that way. I don't like it.
You've got to say it that way. Nevada.
I make my own rules, and I like the way Nevada sounds better. It's like Nevada, like it's more bourgeois.
Oh, it is very bougie, very, very bougie.
Yes, bougie, totally me. If you guys live in South Carolina, absolutely vote for Dimitri. He's awesome. I've had him on twice now. If you live in Las Vegas, I strongly encourage you to vote for Michael Weiss, Amy Villela, and Ruben De Silva. All 3 of them are amazing. And you don't have to pull the lesser of 2 evil shit in 2018. We have actual good candidates running. So please don't make tomorrow another California, because that shit was just depressing and it was fucked up. There should have been more people at the polls. There's no excuse. We have good candidates. Please get off your ass. Please tell all of your friends to get off their asses. People are focusing on 2020, and we don't have a progressive in office in 2020 if we don't get progressives in office now. Yep. That's how it is. So get out there and vote now. So thank you again so much for joining me. Dimitri, you are awesome. You know, I adore you, and I am pulling for you tomorrow.
Thanks, Joy. Yeah, I wish you could. I'm going out to karaoke now. I wish you could join me sometime.
I know your videos always look so fun. I would love to do that. Yeah, I'm planning to one day hit the lottery so I can go on a train ride across the country and just stop and meet all my burner friends along the way.
Well, yeah, now that I know you're in Harrisburg, the next time I head up north to see my people, I'll swing through Harrisburg. I've been there. I spent a few nights there. It's a nice town.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, take care. Best of luck. I'm thinking of you. And
Thanks,
everybody
Lori.
else, get your ass out and vote.
That's right.
Or you'll deal with me. Good night.
Good night.
Take care. Thank you guys for watching.